What's up, everybody? It is Chris Akin from the Classic Metal Show, Aftershocks TV, and Heavy Metal Television. And I am now on Cameo. That's right. If you need a message sent to somebody, maybe it's happy birthday, maybe it's get out of here, hit the street, you're fired. I don't care what it is. Firing a girlfriend, firing a boyfriend, firing an employee, wishing them well, whatever it is, I'm on Cameo. I'm here to deliver the message. I'll do it in my unique way, so you can imagine it'll have some profanity in it and it'll be a little bit filthy, but that's okay because that's probably what you guys want from me anyway. So check me out, cameo.com/Chris Akin. Again, cameo.com/Chris Akin. Book me and I will deliver whatever message it is that you need delivered, and it's cheap, so go do it. All right, later. It is Chris Akin Presents, and it is me, Chris Akin, and joining me today is the guy that's keeping metal alive, I'm going to say, in 2022. New stuff coming from not necessarily new stuff, but new enough stuff from Night Demon, unless you're a really hardcore that bought all this stuff as a collector. The new release is called Year of the Demon. It is a collection of the great material that Jarvis and company have been putting out through the pandemic, and here to talk about it is the one and only leader of Night Demon himself, Mr. Jarvis Leatherby. Jarvis, how are you, man?
Hey, great to see you, Chris.
Yeah, man.
Doing good.
Well, dude, it's I was just talking to somebody yesterday about your band, and was talking about how of all of the bands, the younger bands, not the established guys that have, Rolling Stones money, but the younger bands that are still grinding it out, Night Demon might be the very tip top of those bands as far as how to survive this crazy, wild pandemic. You guys have somehow survived it, and you've kept your fan base engaged, where a lot of people, and you know this, everybody and their brother tried at the beginning of the pandemic with the live streams and the edited together streams or whatever, and that burned out in like 2 months. But you guys just kept the fans engaged with these 7-inch releases and limited edition releases and whatnot. So talk a little bit about your movements as a band, man, as we've walked through such a crazy, kind of unprecedented time.
Yeah, so I think starting off with the releasing singles. I mean, that was the plan that we had going back to late 2018. Okay. So that was something that we had planned. Night Demon's been a band that's always had our own plan, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. There's sometimes, especially in the States, like Europe does a lot of planning in advance. Europeans are generally more responsible, but in the States, things come up all the time. We get offered tours or cool shows, and like with short notice. And we've learned that, like being a younger band, you really have to make your own plans, or else you're just sitting around a lot. Is right. What happens. You're kind of a lot of young bands are sitting around, kind of waiting for something to happen, and that's something that we never wanted to do. So. So going back to the singles, we had a plan that starting in April of 2020, we were going to release some 7 singles, and we were going to, put them out every 5 weeks with no promotion, no pre-order, nothing like that. Just basically kind of cater to the modern demands of society, where you can basically hit a button and instantly get what you want on the internet. Right. Vinyl turnaround times are like about 6 to 9 months. And so we just kind of wanted to do something like that, and basically like, hey, here's a video for the song, here's the behind the scenes video, here's the track digitally, you can have the 7-inch now. So it's kind of like it's old school meets new school. So that was our plan. And we had a whole year of touring booked, where when we were on the road every 5 weeks, when a new single came out, that would kind of be incorporated into the live set. Sure. So when the pandemic hit, we still had we still had all of the capacities at these pressing plants blocked. So we still had the release schedule. And so we just rolled along with that. And basically that ran from April to August of 2020. And in July of 2020, we launched a weekly podcast,
right,
which has been going now for 76 consecutive weeks. So I think the key is consistency. That's all it is. And it's really committing to what you say you're going to do. I think that a lot of bands, they have great ideas and they like to tell people about it. See, now that we have social media and email lists and stuff, you can kind of tell people whatever you want, but delivering is another story. So, you know, I say we're a very ambitious band as well. And there's I mean, you know, about half the things that we plan on doing, we execute. The thing is, we just don't tell people about it until we're actually doing it. So, so we're no different in that way of optimism and trying things out and failing. But I like to think that we kind of fail forward. We fail upwards, you know, and I think that, you know, especially with the podcast, it's something that when we sat down as a band and when we assembled our team of producers and stuff for the show, we were kind of like, look, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this and we're going to do it indefinitely. It's not something, you know, most podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes. And I understand why, you know, like it's a lot of work. But you can't, the key to the success is the consistency and the longevity of it and building the content so that it lives there and people that come on later can really go back, and it's just like building a back catalog of music, you know, people can go back and appreciate that. So that's one thing that's kept us really consistent through this pandemic without being able to tour.
Sure. Yeah. You know, it's funny you bring up the podcast because I'll be perfectly honest with you. When you said you were doing the podcast and I heard what it was going to be, the history of Night Demon, my first reaction, being straight up, was, dude, is there really that much history with Night Demon? You know, because you guys are not an old band, you know, and I'll be honest, I'm being as honest as I can be. I went into it extremely less than optimistic. I figured it was going to be like every other band, that you were going to do one or two or three and then move on to the next deal. It is one of the cooler podcasts out there to really learn, not necessarily only about Night Demon, but about how the struggles and the moves and the maneuvers that you have to do to be a successful band without back catalog, man. It really is interesting.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I like to tell people that even if you're not a fan of the band or you don't know anything about the band, it's a good story of what it takes to be in a real band full time these days, you know. So but yeah, look, I thought the same as you, and the host of the show, Nesbitt, who approached us about doing it, I told him the same thing. I said, man, every week, are you sure? And he's like, look, man, I've got tons of episode ideas. And once we started to get into it, it's like, man, there's a lot to unpack there. And we have more than we can account for at the moment. I mean, we've got a schedule for the next 2 years. So, and then things are popping up. Like we've done a couple shows recently. Our first show's back where we did some one-offs in LA and in North Carolina. And, you know, we're taping all the shows now. We're multi-tracking the shows and we're talking to the fans at the shows. So it's an interactive thing. And now it's like when the band goes out and does stuff, it's kind of like you're along for the ride as it's happening. So it's morphed into something really great, you know, but again, it's the commitment that we made to it that makes it what it is.
Sure. You know, dude, in a weird way, it very much sounds and resembles what another guy that's had a little bit of success in the business has done over the years, Lars Ulrich. I mean, he's kept track of every playlist and every show that he's ever played. And boy, has it come to pay him off nicely now, you know, 40 years down the road. Yeah,
sure. I mean, like, it's no secret that you know, they're one of the big four influences of Night Demon, you know, and it's like, I remember being a kid and like, you know, watching Metallica that was my first concert. And like, I just remember like knowing that's what I wanted to do. And it was the same kind of kind of thing. But actually, I will say that the Metallica podcast came out 1 year after ours,
Of
and
course.
I guarantee you somebody on their team was listening to our show. I guarantee you, there's so much resemblance there. It's flattering, to be honest, you know. So it's cool. I like that we got in a little bit, I guess, late to the podcast game, but early in on the game as far as it goes with bands doing it. And like I said, you know, it's been a consistent thing in our life, and it's really kept us on our game, because with me living in Ireland half the time now, and Dusty in Pennsylvania, and Armand in California, there's a good, you know, most bands probably would have broken up by now, you know. So this thing keeps us on our toes, and it keeps us together, and it keeps us talking about the band every week, you know.
Sure, absolutely. Just real quick, I'm going to step away from Night Demon for a second and stay with Metallica, because you were at the 40th anniversary shows. Talk a little bit about it, man. That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I 10 years earlier, the 30th anniversary shows, you know, I missed out on those shows. And at the time, their fan club was like a paid fan. I was a paid member of the fan club for over a decade. And, you know, they did those shows really intimately at the Fillmore, at some small venues, and they had a ton of special guests. With this one, I was kind of hoping they would have somebody out there, but they didn't do that. But you can't really top what they did before. But, you know, I think that, you know, to be honest, my favorite part about being at those shows was just seeing a lot of Night Demon fans and interacting with them, and a lot of old school friends, and a lot of the friends that are close to the Metallica camp that kind of like came up with them have become supporters of ours. And so I think my favorite part was the environment, you know. Sure. I think the band played great, and they sounded great. You know, but I did feel like I was being part of it was definitely a televised show, you know, like there was a lot of safety there with the set list, and with maybe the stage banter and stuff. And, you know, that's no discredit to them, but I just, you know, it's changed a lot for me. You know, I used to show up to the, I've seen Metallica almost 40 times. And I used to be the kid I'd show up 8 hours early, and, I would just be in the front row the whole time, just waiting and waiting. And then it was just a different experience for me now. But look, I'm really happy that I got to go and be a part, you know, soak up the vibe of the whole thing. And that's kind of where I'm at these days with things like that, you know.
Sure. Dude, it's funny because, you know, I too have seen Metallica over 40 times, and literally moved from California back here to Ohio around 3 dates. I sent my wife and kid three weeks early, and I stayed just so that I could catch them in San Francisco, Sacramento, and Reno, and make the little trek back. And, you know, I was one of the lucky 40,000 that has turned into 4 million. But
sure.
I was at Day on the Green, which is the one that even the band celebrates as their triumphant moment.
So the one in 85 or
91.
Okay, 91. Yeah, 91. Okay, right. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that was the one where I guess their dressing room was covered in plastic, because they played some other event for Bill Graham where they trashed the dressing room.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That's epic. You know, I mean, and like, so that's around the time that I discovered the band, right? Yeah. My first show was 88 Monsters of Rock, LA Coliseum. Okay. My dad was in a band with Michael Anthony from Van Halen when they were kids. So like that Van Halen was kind of part of my childhood growing up. And so here comes Metallica attached to this tour, right? And that I saw them, and it was just like, wow, you know, that's what I want to do. But the 91 Day on the Green, I mean, there's a lot of video footage that's when I started playing music, when I was around that age. And yeah, that's cool, man. So even me not being there, I mean, the legendary status of that show, I mean, like has even stuck with me and inspired me to do what I do now, you know. So.
Sure. Well, dude, how did you? Is it just you know, from your dad, or how did you become such an old school metalhead and not get sucked into that whole world, into the mid 90s, into that whole Korn or vibe? I mean, you guys really shun that, or not shun it, but you don't.
Yeah,
I mean, either.
I think that, like, rock and roll always, even today, like that, kids don't listen to rock. The ones that do, there's a certain rebellion in it, and like I was always kind of a rebellious kid. And
Sure.
When I was in high school in the 90s, everybody was listening to rap, and honestly, the rap wasn't, compared to today, it wasn't bad.
Sure.
Like there was some talent in it, and there was some like cool hooks and stuff, and I understood it, and I understood where the attitude and the voice of rap was coming from. Absolutely. I respected it. But I was just into rock, and at the time, alternative rock was pretty big. I didn't really care for a lot of the grunge stuff. Besides, I loved Alice in Chains, and I did like some Soundgarden.
Sure.
I just liked the more musicianship, and along with those grunge bands, Metallica was equally as popular, if not more, than any of those bands. So and same with Guns N' Roses. So they were a great gateway into that for me, and that's the path that I chose. And being a kind of rebellious soul that I was, I felt even in the 90s that I was born a decade too late. So like even then I felt alienated. And I remember seeing, I saw Metallica I think 22 times in the like load reload era.
Okay.
And I remember seeing Ozzy a lot in that time too. And so I would see Ozzy, and the opening acts were like Korn and the Deftones. I would see Metallica. I would see Metallica, and Korn was the opening act. I went to the very first Ozfest, and it was like a lot of that stuff. And I didn't like it. I mean, I was never into those bands, but I did at the time, even though, I was maybe 15, 16 years old. When I saw those bands live, I still knew, I thought to myself, like, this is like the future. This is like the future of metal. This is going to catch on. And sure enough, it did, especially in the MTV, like TRL days and stuff. But it still wasn't something I identified with. But I noticed that my old school heroes were kind of embracing the new and taking them out. I still see that to this day. I just wish that the older bands like the Priests and the Maidens and Metallicas, and they would realize that there's a newer crop of bands that are doing something better, and that modern metal is actually what's outdated, now. Priest is actually doing a pretty good job. They've taken out Saxon, Uriah Heep, Black Star Riders, Sabaton, who I don't really care for, but I think they've earned that spot. I think that they've done a better job recently of taking out bands that their fans would appreciate. But with the other bands, I mean, basically, they're bringing back the tailgate party by having these opening bands, come out. It's not doing anything for the support bands either, So the fans are very vocal that they could give a shit about that stuff, So like, I'm not here to throw salt in anyone else's game. And obviously, I'm a bit envious that those bands are doing that stuff, and we're not on those big tours, but. I have a right to my opinion, and I don't think I think that, metal has so many subgenres, and, people like what they like, and that's fine. But it's just, I think that the fans can be served better with something that give them some hope for the future, that there are bands out there that are carrying those traditions on.
Sure. Well, and man, I mean, I'm 53, so my concert time was early 80s to now, obviously, but in those early days, every band that I became a fan of, well, not every, but 90% of the bands that I became a fan of was because I saw them opening for somebody else that I was there to see. Whether it was hair bands, I'd go see a Motley Crue show, and I would get Damn Yankees or something like that, and I'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool, that's just how it was. And that stopped in the 2000s. It really just stopped. I can point to the tour, Metallica, when they took out that elephant, Cage the Elephant, and it was like, dude, Cage the Elephant, come on. And I, it's frustrating on a lot of level as a music fan, because the ticket prices, the ticket price $150 for a Judas Priest or a Metallica or whatever.
More than that, man. They're way more than that now. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, last time I saw Metallica was the Hardwired tour, the tour that they did, and they had a comedian or something.
Well, they had a DJ this time, and the crowd was like booing that. But look, Metallica, they take risks. They like to do things differently than anybody. I'm all about trying things, Night Demon is a very experimental band in our approach too, but we do like to think about what our fans would like, even when we do take risks. And I think maybe some of these bands just want to distance themselves from heavy metal, in a way, like they may not classify themselves as that anymore, or we definitely do. No, we are a heavy metal band. So like we know our audience, and we always want to serve them while still trying to get them to venture out into new territory. We want to keep those traditions alive. So look, I could sit here all day and talk about what I wish my favorite bands would do, but that's why I have my own band,
Right. Exactly. So piggybacking off what you said about, respecting the old bands and whatever, my favorite track on Year of the Demon is In Trance. I love that. I love the respect that you gave Uli. I love the fact that you pretty much kind of adjusted your vocal sound to fit the track. That it's such a cool moment. And if people don't know Night Demon and they want something a little bit familiar to kind of ease them in, I would suggest that is the track. No?
Yeah, I would think so. Obviously, if you like 70s era Scorpions, Uli John Roth is playing live with us on that track. Right. And when the record comes out March 25th, we'll also have that limited B-side on there, which is we also do the song Top of the Bill with him at that same concert. So, man, that's just one of those dream come true moments, and I'm glad we could capture that. And it's kind of crazy because it's like he's represented on our record. It's saying it's not, it's a trip, man. I'm glad that we were able to capture that.
Sure. Now, how did that happen? Had you met Uli at a festival or something?
Yeah. He played right after us in Germany at the Rock Hard Festival. There's like about 10,000 people there. And I had known his agent. He was a friend of mine. And I had said, hey, we've been doing this live version of In Trance. Do you think Uli would come and play it with us? And Uli was like, hell no. It's like, I'm not going to go out before my set and play my hit with you, and we're like, okay, so fair enough. Later that night, we were hanging out at the hotel bar, and it was like Uli and us and Saxon and Armored Saint, and we're just in this hotel bar together. And I'm like, wow, this is a pretty awesome moment, Sure. And so we kind of talked to him again, and he kind of blew us off. And then the next morning, he was going to his car, and he came. Well, we got in the elevator together. We were both checking out of the hotel, and he had his roadie had left, and he had 13 guitars he had to take, and so we kind of helped him out and kind of talked to him again. He blew us off again, and then about a year later, I talked to his agent again, and I said, look, we're headlining the Hell Over Hammerberg Festival. It's sold out. It's our first big festival headliner in Europe, and we want to do something special for this, and we'd like to fly out Uli and have him come play the encore with us, but we don't want anybody to know about it. And he thought it was a great idea.
Cool.
He thought it'd be really good for our fans, and he thought it would be good for Uli's profile to have these younger metalheads be like, hey, yeah, this guy is still true to the scene. But Uli was resistant again, and he it took a lot of time to talk him into it, and he finally did. And he didn't, we set it up in Hamburg where we were going to have a rehearsal, and we rented this rehearsal space, and then he didn't want to rehearse, and he showed up right before our gig, and we met backstage and kind of tried to go over stuff. It was pretty chaotic, but it turned out to be amazing. And actually episode 2 of our podcast, we do a full 90-minute whole expose on what happened that night, and I
Sure.
recommend people go check that out. But yeah, it's persistence, you know. I mean, like we weren't gonna let it go, and I'm glad we didn't, because at the end of it, he was really happy that he did it.
No question, man. Well, Jarvis, obviously, man, metal today is more and more becoming underground again, which, in my opinion, and I'm curious yours, I'm happy about that, because what it does is it eliminates so many of the posers that are just looking for fame or money or whatever, and are not in it for the music and for the community of metal, so to speak. So, you know, you're actually in the in the industry where I mean, obviously there's probably a part of you that's like, that wishes that, hey, anybody that shits out a record would sell 500,000 copies of it anymore. But where do you stand as somebody that's both a participant and a fan, man? Are you glad that it's becoming more underground? Do you wish it would resurge, or what?
Man, you hit on a lot of key points there. It's a double-edged sword, you know. Obviously you want to get your music out to more people. You know, it's like I don't only play in this band, I play in a couple other legendary bands. Sure. I manage 5 bands. I have a record company. I have a merchandising business and a warehouse and employees. Like, so selling product is something that I actively do. I make my living in metal, right? But it's look, I'll say this, and we run a festival. I mean, shit, I'll say this, we have some amazing fans and some loyal fans, and that's, at the end of the day, is what's way more important than being the flavor of the week. It's crazy. I have friends that have been signed to major labels that have sold 250,000 records that would draw 2 people to a gig now, you know. Or there's a lot of one-hit wonders from the 90s. I mean, big guys that have big radio hits, like they have 0 loyal fan base. I have some friends in a band that I won't mention their name, but they had two big hits in the 2000s era. One was very big. Okay. Very big. They're multi-platinum selling artists. And I look at their interaction on social media, and it's like, there's like no diehard fans. The ones that they have are just like psychos, you know, and like they're not people that the band really wants to be around. And right. They end up, you know, they still make a living. They still play shows, but they're playing like USO stuff for the troops. They're playing these big throwback tours where they're like 1 of 5 on the bill. Sure. Of these one-hit wonders, or county fairs where they're not even the headlining act. Right. And look, I mean, that's great, but it's like, at the end of the day, the material stuff comes and goes. At the end of the day, you want to be known for something. Your legacy has to be intact. And I think even for a band like Night Demon at our level, I mean, we are many people's favorite band. And to me, sure. that means everything. That means everything. You know, I know bands that are more popular than us that are nobody's actual favorite band. Or I know some mid-level bands that have been around for 45 years that are classic bands, but they're not one person's favorite fucking band, you know? And I always got to look at it that way. So whatever happens, if the music gets more popular, that's fine. Sometimes, you know, hey, look, you'll hear Night Demon on Sirius XM radio, sandwiched between Trivium and 5 Finger Death Punch. And the way that I see it is like, that's not the company we want to be in, but it's never too late for somebody to get into good music. And like, I had to be exposed to it. I grew up in suburban California, and it wasn't until I got older and started going to underground shows that I realized what poser shit I was actually listening to. I mean, it's all about how you find stuff. It's all about how you find stuff, you know, what you're exposed to. So I don't blame anybody that's on the wrong path. They need to be exposed to it. So we're doing everything we can.
Definitely. Do you find any challenges for you personally, not Night Demon as an entity, but for you personally, when you have to make decisions for Night Demon as well as for the management company and the merch and everything? Do you sometimes have to cater your decisions for Night Demon to what's profitable, what makes sense on the spreadsheet, what makes
Not
sense
really.
for fans?
Not
No?
really. I think like the cool thing about the bands that I represent is like we're all in the same scene, but we're all completely different from each other, right? Stylistically, it's weird. Like we're all in the classic heavy metal scene, but we're all so unique from one another that one hand washes the other. Like if Night Demon has an opportunity that we're not able to do, I can always get that for somebody else. And I feel like I have the best crop of bands. I feel like every band that I represent is like the best at what we do. And like, I really feel good about the legacy of these bands. Like when it's all said and done, you know, at the end of my lifetime. And I think that we're more of a fraternity than a competitive entity, you know, and there's nothing wrong with, yeah, I think Night Demon's we're just above competition. We just don't need to compete. I mean, it's not in our nature. I mean, we're here to support this scene, man, and like we've done a lot of work to help other bands. We've done a lot of work just to inspire other people, you know, to go down and kick these doors down for other bands to know that it's possible to do this thing, you know. So we're here to inspire, not to compete.
No question, man. Well, Jarvis, there's a lot of people that are claiming, I am not one of them, I'm going to assume you're not either, but there's a lot of people claiming that the pandemic is winding down or over or whatnot. And what kind of plans can you make right now? Can you say, well, we're gonna play, and I know you just announced a rescheduled tour.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say that and say, yeah, that's gonna happen, or is it really kind of?
I think so. I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've got stuff planned for the spring and all through the summer and through the end of the year. I think so. I think more than anything, touring has become a seasonal thing.
Okay.
Like this pandemic is not going anywhere. Like it's part of our lives. You know, the COVID thing is just something we're gonna have to deal with for a long time. You know, but I see people going back to living their lives. I mean, look, you even had a continent like Australia, who had like basically a zero tolerance for it. Like if there was one case in the entire continent, they would lock down everything. Now they have a vaccination rate of over 90%, and cases have a record high, but they're sticking with it, and they're going, hey, we locked it down longer than anybody. We had a zero tolerance. Now we vaccinated over 90% of people. If people are getting it, okay, then this is our life. This is how we have to live. We can't go any longer this way. So I think that from state to state, from country to country, there's different. Hey, look, even in San Francisco, I went to an underground show that had more COVID restrictions than the goddamn Chase Center for Metallica. So from place to place, you just gotta. That's it. You gotta make decisions, and you gotta see what happens. But in our position, we can't wait any longer. We're going out there, and we're gonna see how it goes, and we're gonna hope for the best. But I mean, it's like, there's more vaccines, there's boosters, there's immunity. There, you know, hey, viruses are mutating. If things are happening, like, you know, hey, look, there's bands playing right now. There's bands touring. And when that's happening, we're going to be one of them. And if it kills me and I die from it, then okay, you know, but that's just the way it goes. Like, this is what I do. And I want to die doing what I love. And I've done all the steps to protect myself the best way I can. And, you know, I hope our fans have too, but at the end of the day, it's their decision. And it's if they want to decide to go out and risk life and limb, I mean, shit, I've been doing that my whole fucking life. So, you know, I have sympathy for people that got the raw end of this, you know, but it's like, it's not something that anybody did to anybody else. And I think the blame game just needs to stop. These lockdowns don't work. We've tried it. I know people that never left their house that got deathly ill. So
Right here.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
There you go.
I did 8 days in the hospital. I went out one time in a year and a half. I went out and I got COVID and got COVID to the point that I was hospitalized.
Yeah, right. There you go. And so, and by the way, yeah, I'm glad you made it out of that. Yeah, you know, but hey, look, I mean, there's a lot of things, and now there's a lot of other colds and flus that have been off the table for a couple of years. I mean, those could come back strong. It's just life, and we're all trying to figure it out the best way we can. But look, at this point, me personally and the guys in my band, we are committed to doing what makes us happy and what makes our fans happy. And honestly, that's the best medicine, and that's what keeps us alive, you know? So I'd rather do that than isolate myself for years with the fear of going out and end up dying from this thing anyway, you know? Like, it's the reality we're living in. Everybody has given away a lot of things. We've given away a lot of liberties and a lot of freedoms too, you know? And those, once you give that stuff away to the government, don't expect to get them back without a war, without fighting them for this. We still have the TSA from 9/11. They stopped 0 terrorist attacks. All they've done is fuck with me every time I travel, you know? It's the truth. This is what happens. I know we want to be safe, but I've never seen so many people just trust the government blindly out of nowhere. And even, look, I'm vaccinated, but I mean, I'm not under the illusion that these drug companies have been sued for billions of dollars for lying to people for the last 20 years. Like, I've rolled the dice, but look, here I am. I've complied with what everybody wants me to do, and now it's still not good enough. So, hey, man, you know, like I like in this fucking life, like it's here now, and I'm living it now. So. You know, but it's just crazy. I come from the metal and the punk scene that was always like, open your eyes to these things. And I've never seen any more. The punk scene, especially, is just completely flip-flop to this. Do what the man says. And I want no part of it, you know?
Right.
So, you're not a conspiracy theorist for fucking questioning something. You're not. I'm not saying that everything is wrong, but the major media it's their job to instill fear in us, and the government has done a great job of dividing us, so they don't have to fight us anymore. We're fighting each other, and instead, you know, look, I want to be wrong. I want to be somebody that, hey, tell me how I'm wrong. Give me your opinion. I want to hear it. And I want you to prove me wrong. But when I ask a question about something, I'm not stupid for doing that. Okay. Right. Especially when I'm asking a question from people that have an agenda. No, my agenda is to rock. So,
dude, I'm with you, man. I'm 1000% with you.
Yeah.
Well, dude, obviously, man, Night Demon has plenty going on. You're going to be on tour. You've got Year of the Demon coming out in March. So why don't you give the plugs where everybody should go to keep up with Night Demon and keep up with you and Iron Grip and Sirathungal and everything else.
Yeah, nightdemon.net. That's our central hub. You'll find everything on our website there. Links to the podcast. You can get the podcast anywhere. It's called the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. You can go to irongripheavymetal.com to check out all the merchandise that our bands have and tickets to our festival, Frost and Fire. And lastly, Year of the Demon will be out March 25th. We'll have a new single, an exclusive for Decibel Magazine and their Flexi series in June, and a brand new studio record on November 4th. So we've got a ton of stuff this year. We've got a U.S. tour in the fall. We're doing summer festivals in Europe. We've got a tour in Europe the month of May with Midnight. And we've got some stuff planned for spring for the U.S. that we're going to announce very soon. So it is the Year of the Demon, and you're either there or you're fucking nowhere.
Very good, man. Well, one more time, Night Demon, the Year of the Demon, comes out March 25th. And Jarvis, it's always fun to catch up, my friend.
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks, man. Good to have you back behind the mic.
Hell yeah. When it's time to rock, it's time to tune in to Crash Course Radio. Featuring the very best of the heavier music, from Slayer to Clutch to Fear Factory, it's all in one place, Crash Course Radio. To tune in to Crash Course Radio, simply visit www.cmsradio.net. You can also tune in on the CMS Network app by opening the app, clicking the musical notes at the top right corner, and selecting Crash Course Radio from our stations. All the best heavy music is there, so you should be too. Ditch the commercial radio and make Crash Course Radio your everyday station.